here. Uh,
Oh, lovely to
Siobhan.
see everyone. Mike Kennedy put some information about the song. Thanks, Mike, in the chat. Seamus, Hanyel mi marv past. Well, hami tala sin a hoinja. Seamus. Alan McCachen. Yeah, that sound rings a bell, Hannah. Anyway, well, Bachor Goin Tashachog, Falchar Vula, has ha homa feikin noch garist, agus Hashinya own son Haley, and session Mayerig, Gami Orstanach, Achga, Hami Hotalacha, Gavilshin Kawa noch. So welcome everyone to Ed Haley. This is our last season. It's kind of a sad, our last session of the season. We've been gathering since January 14th, every Friday night. And it's been really wonderful to come together at this time and during COVID and just at this time in the world to be able to come together like this online and chat and listen to guests and share some of our stories about Gaelic language and culture and so it's been a wonderful time and really happy that you came back for the last session tonight. So before we begin, I want to acknowledge we're in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral home of the Mi'kmaq people and the unceded territory. The Mi'kmaq did not give up any of their land rights or any rights through the peace and friendship treaties of the 1700s. And one thing we were talking in our group, our planning group this week about our last session, and we thought we should add to that land acknowledgement that we're still working on living up to our treaties and becoming treaty people here in Mi'kmaq that honors the treaties. And we have a ways to go so that we are able to, really say that land acknowledgement with a lot of meaning and integrity. So we're hopefully going in that direction. So I think a lot of the people on the call have joined us over the last number of weeks. There might be some new people, I'm not sure, but we've been gathering and really sharing stories about our connection with Gaelic language and culture. And, checking in with those stories to see, are these stories that we are still resonate with us? Do we want to leave some of these stories behind and create some new stories as we sort of imagine a future for Gaelic in Nova Scotia? And we also have worked on a theme this session of Gaelic, and which is a word that actually means enough, but also plenty, and looking at how when you have enough, it's actually plenty, and maybe how does that show up in our lives. And so we're going to look back over the last, I think we had 7 sessions, and hear from our guests and then, reflect on the comments and think about what the future can hold for us. Both in the Narrative Project and in our lives, and also as people who are interested in Gaelic language and culture and all cultures here in Mi'kmaq. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bernadette, because we always start with a breakout room. So she's going to introduce the questions in the breakout rooms.
Hi, everyone. Oop, there's some feedback there. Nice to see you all, and nice to see some new faces and the folks that have been coming all along. So welcome. So I'm Bernadette Campbell, Smisha Beranek Heimbel. And so we generally go off into our breakout rooms right away. And so in that room, it's like a little mini Kaylee that you'll make. And we ask that you introduce yourself, say where you're calling in from. And we also ask that we just take turns to make sure that we listen to each other and give each other a moment to think through a response to the questions. And you can always pass if you'd like. And we have Natalie, one of our tech people here, and she will give us a little indication of when we are to return or to finish our conversations. So the questions tonight are, we want you to introduce yourself and say where you're calling from, but also the question is, what curiosities or questions are you bringing with you to this session tonight? So what sort of brought you here that sort of made you a little bit curious? I like to learn a little bit more, or I want to go deeper. What's on your mind? Or you could even talk about what stands out for you from the last sessions that we've had in season 2 from Irheli, and what moments do you still think about and maybe possibly even want more of? So we're going to whisk you off into your groups again. It's usually groups of 3 for those that are new. If you have any technical issues, you can leave, not the whole group, but leave the mini group and go back, and Natalie or Susan will help us help you get back into a group. And you're welcome to speak any language that's you're comfortable in speaking and sharing. We welcome that, and we will respond as best we can. So I think we're all set. We have 9 to 10 minutes, and we'll see you back here.
And it also adds another dimension to my life.
If everyone in Mi'kmaq had enough, had what they needed, how would that make your daily life different? If especially if folks in your own community had enough, what would that look like?
Oh my God. We'd have clean drinking water. We'd have sufficient housing. We'd have land. Because really, when you look
there's
at
there's a lack of a lot of things.
Right?
uh,
Those are basic things.
There's not enough land base. This is a major thing.
Even Wego Koma, we put up around 60 houses for the past 2 years all over. We have 100 more, but we got no place to put them.
It's interesting. Well, it's ironic, isn't it? Because at the beginning we say the land acknowledgement often. Well,
We're on this land, but we don't own the land.
I can't even imagine what that would have been like, say, if my life had taken a different turn and it didn't lead me to Cape Breton Island. It's unimaginable, because it's really the elder Gaelic speakers have kind of led my journey in a way that they are why I wanted to learn Gaelic. It wasn't so much about the language as being with them. When I first darkened your door, we traveled back in time. I met people more real than flesh and bone. Shani Vichel, Dal Wawister Vod, Ian Anash Edachet. Their names, like magical incantations, I asked you to repeat them again and again. Your people dotted the hillsides and filled the glens. They cut hay with horse-drawn mowers, winnowed oats in the wind, planted and butchered by the moon. I saw planting frolics, wood frolics, and millings. No one worked alone. I saw Sunday visits and evening prayers, fished the rivers and filled barrels with Gaspereau and salt. We traveled the storied landscape together, where each hill and stream had a name, An Gwansk, An Badan Mor, An Toppergrat. walked barefoot to Egypt, bringing cattle to summer grazing. Listened to Hussey regale children in Gaelic with ancient hero tales. This was your world, and it became mine too, one I could visit from time to time at least. When Vincent left, your world became cloudy and vague. The hills grew quiet, and so did you. I could see you becoming lonesome for your people. But without you, where are they now? A very nian, Awastudvik, Awastudoik. Are the glens still full of characters? Do the hills still have names? Okay. Well, there we are. There's a recap of what this season has been. And I think I'm in the right place. I hope I am. Yes, we're going to bring up on screen our different hosts that you would have seen in that video and throughout this season. And we'll take some stock in what we just saw and what we learned in the past little while. We've been gathering before these sessions, of course, planning, and then we were all part of last year's run of talks. And so usually when we gather to discuss these things, we do a little check-in. So I guess this is kind of a check-in with our crew. And the questions that I guess I'll ask, and we'll get your weight in on things, is what struck you? And so maybe it's from the video there or from parts of the season that we didn't just witness but stay with you. So what struck you, and then what might you do differently going forward? What's this leaving with you in an action feel, I guess? So who should I start with? Maybe Bernadette. Is that all right, Bernadette, if I start with you? What struck you from it all?
Okay. So I think what struck me was during the session that I had hosted. I think is the last piece of this video that we had was Carmen MacArthur sharing the poem. But just before she shared the poem, she said that she couldn't even imagine her life here in Cape Breton if it wasn't for the elder Gaelic speakers, and how that changed her life, and that really she remained here because of them, even more so than just to learn to speak Gaelic. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And it really resonated with me because it made me think about like that I'm here, and that, you know, my parents, my grandparents, all my elders older than me are all gone. And I feel like she's telling me, she's left me with a message as well about my role as well, and how I can make these connections. And what's important is the people and their connection with language and the experiences and what they offered, what we can learn from their experiences, and also how we can move forward into the future using their wisdom, their guidance, and making connections with other cultures and other communities. So yeah, that's sort of what has struck me right now.
Mm. Are you left wanting to do anything in particular? What might be feeling like it's burning a bit to get done?
I think what this season 2 has taught me is that we could go deeper, and that there were some really, I think, critical pieces in that video. And not to take anything from someone else's, but to hear Rosie say that someone in her community was saying, I miss speaking, you know, was feeling lonely and misses speaking their language. Or to hear Carmen say that no one worked alone. Like, it just gives me a sense that I need to reach out a bit more in terms of community and and work in that space a little bit more, because I think that maybe we will become stronger for each other. When I say for each other, I mean all of the communities, the cultures, the people here in Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Great insight. How about you, Ian? What struck you? What are you left wanting to take upon yourself?
Well, I think, sort of big picture, what struck me was that week in and week out, and this was true last year too, people kept showing up. And there's a real appetite to connect with each other, to continue to build community, and to connect with this culture and language that so many of us care so deeply about. And so I think that was kind of the sort of thing that was embedded in almost every moment of the sessions. Sort of looking a bit, sort of getting a bit more specific, particularly in an area that I'm really passionate and interested about, which is language revitalization. I think of some of the things that Leanne and Bernard said in the session I led. And, I was really struck, and I don't know that it's something I hadn't thought before, but it just reaffirmed something by some of the things that Leanne was saying. And she was talking about how you have to make a decision to center the language in your life, and it can't live in a silo. It has to be part of all kinds of different domains of your life. And I think at a community level, a lot of the time, the language, whether it's for adults or children, kind of lives in language class, as I'm saying all these words in English. It kind of lives in language class. And then when you leave, it doesn't exist outside there. And I was really taken by her saying, you have to make the conscious decision to include it in your life and to make it a major part of your life. And I think Bernard kind of echoed that and was talking about the idea of, maybe none of us were ready and that you can't wait. And I really think that, there's been a lot of damage that's been done in our community, literally going back 800 years. And, I think we can't wait for permission. We just have to do what we have to do. We have to act. We have to act on a community level. We have to act on an individual level. And just sort of a final thought about things that struck me. I was kind of wondering how, I call them the youth. I don't know if that's appropriate or not. I'm twice their age. But I was kind of wondering, what do the youth want? I don't know. I have no idea. They use words I don't understand. I don't go on TikTok. And it was amazing how much what they want is what I want, right? And the things that they have identified so clearly and so articulately. So many of them said, very similar things. We don't have enough programming. There need to be opportunities for immersion education. There needs to be a clear path towards fluency for those people in Nova Scotia, regardless of their background, who want to learn this language. We have a lot of work that we still need to do, but it really kind of comforted me and even inspired me that at such a young age, and I know that sounds patronizing, I don't mean it to be, that they figured this out and that they're going to go after those things. So that's really what struck me, the appetite, the fact that there's a real passion for this, and I'm very much encouraged by that.
Well said. Well said. Mike, what struck you?
One thing that stood out for me was the power of belief. In the clip we had of Angus Brendan, he was talking about the Faroe Islands and how they believed their language was very important. Unfortunately, we missed the first part, which is probably the most important piece. We're just talking about this sense of being remote and, and things being difficult. Cape Breton, my gosh, it's it's a whole kilometer off the mainland. Internet, that's very difficult for you folks. We can't organize that for you. The Western Isles, tunnels. Well, we'll think about that. Meanwhile, here's the Faroe Islands, 600 kilometers off the coast of the Western Isles. Their population is growing. They have the fastest internet in the world. They have this intricate infrastructure, a wonderful tunnel system and that sort of thing. And you kind of think, why is that? Why is it different? And Callum MacLean, the great folklorist, mentioned this in the 50s. He, comparing Loch Haber and Sweden. Like one place it was too distant, too difficult. One place, no, there's no problem. We can do this. And the Faroese say it's because of their language. And it's not that the language is magic, it's because it centers them in the middle of their world. They don't see themselves as the rump end of some other place. They're not attached as a minimal part of some other culture. They see themselves at the center. And so I think if, like Rodney was talking about how natural it was to pass the culture on in our community, you just went and visited and it just naturally happened. But when you're being taught for generation after generation that your culture is useless, that you're too far away, you're too remote, you're too poor, you start to do that work yourself. Like Mary Jane said, the teacher who, punished kids for speaking Gaelic and then, went to learn Gaelic songs at their homes in the evening, not because she was a horrible person, just because that's what she came to believe. So here we have these young Gaels, all they want, it's such a modest thing they want, is to live in community and share their culture. And if we want that to happen, that means we have to believe something different than we currently believe. We have to think it's not just think it's important, we have to believe it's important. So that's, I think, what stood out for me, how powerful that is if you believe it.
Right. Are you left with a sense of urgency with action? Anything that you feel driven to do now?
Yeah, I think one thing that Rodney was talking about, dancing on his mother's feet, and I know Elizabeth Ann and Alec Angus, and they're great dancers. If they're on the call, they'd be laughing right now saying, but they're lovely dancers. But what makes them great is they go to the dances and they dance. They're not trying to impress anybody. They do it because they love to do it. And that kind of just brought that home to me. How many times do I judge myself? Like, oh, my Gaelic is terrible. I'm horrible on the fiddle. I'm too old now. I'll never learn it, blah, 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 blah. And what I kind of thought is, well, I'm just going to make that commitment every day. And I've already started. Every day I'm going to do one little thing, at least in Gaelic. So maybe one day I'm going to spend 3 hours trying to figure out irregular verbs. Or maybe it's just going to be 5 minutes, listen to the weather. Maybe I'm going to play one tune on the fiddle, sing one verse of a song. That's enough. Every day I'm going to express my culture somehow. And then I'm going to, like Bernadette said, keep building that community, keep reaching out and connecting. So that's what's important for me.
It sounds like you're reauthoring. It sounds like you're you're changing your narrative.
I'm trying to do so. Yep.
That's good. That means things are working. What about you, Francis? What stays with you?
Yeah, I'm just listening to what everyone else is saying, and it really resonates with me what they're saying as well. But I guess if I were to pick something for me, what struck me from the video, like watching the video and thinking back to the season 2, was I think it really moved me that the inclusion of the Mi'kmaq and in our last session. And I guess I'm moved by the sort of the kinship I feel with them on a shared, I guess a shared love of language and a shared some issues of language loss, the importance of community. And also I'm really struck by the difference in our communities in terms of like the access to land and ownership of land. So, I've become more aware that it's very different here in Mi'kmaq when it comes to Gaelic language revitalization compared to, say, in Scotland or Ireland, because here we are in Mi'kmaq, we're guests on this land, and saying that, we as Gaels feel so rooted here I guess we'd say in Nova Scotia and Cape Breton, like we feel very rooted, and I guess we've been here for generations. So we have a connection to the land here too. And I think that really comes through in Carmen's poem when she talks about the lineage there on that place in Kiltarlity where she lives, and the people and how they're still connected to their people, to their ancestors, the people who live there, the Gaels, and the sense of loss, that she feels with Marion and Vince leaving her life. And so, yeah, I'm struck by that connection, that we're in a very unique place here in terms of Gaelic revitalization. I think there's some challenges, but there's really wonderful opportunities. There's something special can happen here, I think, for sure.
That's good. A lot. That video really showcased how much happened in those 7, 8 sessions. And that's it. It's all so vitally important as we weave through this together. One of the things that stays with me, in addition to all that you've contributed, are the breakout rooms and the conversations had with all of the people that have made this part of their week, if it was once or every time. This doesn't happen without, you know, a group effort. And I think that came up a lot of times where we speak to connections and people and why we're doing this. It's all to be within that fabric. And I really like that in Carmen's poem as well. No work was ever done alone. And so I think we still all crave that connection. And that's one of the reasons this perhaps was such a success. But I also take with me the off recording conversations that were had in those breakout rooms with those that I lucked into being with. It's all part of what this project, I think, was and what ruminates with me, for sure. And I can't help but think of Gloud and think of areas that I feel like I have plenty, but also the way that at the end of these sessions I feel like I just want more, as selfish as that might seem, and that it's not enough. And the more that I learn about this culture, the more I want to know. And if I lose that quest, that I won't progress, kind of thing. So I feel both worlds of plenty, but still on the hunt for more of this great stuff. So lots of thoughts from us tonight. Maybe I'll hand it over to Ian to jump us into the next area here.
Thank you, Margie. Speaking of breakout rooms, and we're going to send you back to them again. And this time, what we really want you to do to talk about is where we go from here. Some of the questions we might suggest that you could ask each other include, and thank you, Natasha, for putting them in the chat. What other stories and themes do you want to hear more of? Whose voices are missing? What are your wildest dreams for Gaelic language and culture in your own life? And for what the Gaelic Narrative Project could be moving forward in the future. So we really would encourage you to spend the next part of the evening, and it'll be approximately 7 minutes for each person in the group, just sort of thinking about these things. We really want to know what it is you want, because you are the people who make this initiative what it is. We want to know what you think, and that will help us shape the future of the Gaelic Narrative Project. So we're going to go into breakout rooms, and then we'll come back and kind of share what we spoke about. Fruitful conversation. And what we're going to do now, this is the time in our sessions called the Harvest. And what we're hoping is that some of you will feel comfortable to type in the chat some of the impressions you've had about this evening, about this season, and the conversation you just had. So I also, before I sort of ask a couple of guiding questions, I want to just let you know that for everybody who's registered, you're on our email list, and which is a good thing, don't panic. And we're going to send you a survey, so you will have another opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about how you feel about the initiative, what would you maybe like to see in the future. But for the time being, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, and please feel free to type in the chat, and I'll read a few of your comments as you do. So what struck you from the video and or your conversations this evening? And has there been an important message from season 2? Sorry, I've just misread that. So okay. So has there been an important message from season 2? And how will this impact your life going forward? So again, what struck you from the video or your conversations? Has there been an important message that you're taking away from this season? and how might that impact your life moving forward. So we'd love to hear from you. Take a little bit of time now, and if you feel comfortable, feel free to share in the chat. We do sort of collect these comments, and they're part of the website, which also includes the video recordings from the sessions. And we're always happy to hear from people that they've been watching, and sort of maybe people who weren't at the sessions, or people after the sessions go back and watch. So I'll just read some of those out as they come along. And again, we really appreciate everybody's feedback, and this helps guide us, so that's great. So Wayne's asking for the link to the website. So I think one of us can drop that in the chat for you, Wayne. Mike says, taking small steps is enough. Just keep taking them. And remember, you're not alone. Keep building your community, which I think is a really good point. Finley says, good seeing people from the Mi'kmaq community being involved. I would certainly echo that. Marianne McLean says, Gaylor was a wonderful way to link language and culture. And I believe both Susan and Natasha have put the link in the chat now, Wayne. That made it sound like I wasn't sure, but I am sure it's there. I can see it. We have t-shirts for the best comments, by the way, so that's not actually true. Wayne further adds, a sense of belonging is a powerful glue. I don't think community can exist without it. And somebody DM'd me what sizes, so my joke blew up in my face. So we'll take a few more minutes if people want to make some comments. Francis says, lovely conversation with Albert Marshall and Finlay McLeod. Albert remembers Gaels and Mi'kmaq exchanging greetings in their language outside church in the 1940s, which is just a sort of a beautiful image, and to think about that. Edith says, all of the sessions were wonderful. Enough is plenty is a good motto to live by. Bernadine says, believe in building the 3 C's, connection, community, and culture. Siobhan says, similar to Mike taking small steps, the idea that broken Gaelic is better than no Gaelic at all, having recently moved away from Cape Breton and away from and further away from a physical Gaelic community than I've ever been, Gaylor has been a great way to stay connected and to get some ideas to keep expressing my Gaelic culture in my day-to-day life. Finley says, time to start building up and thinking how language communities can be built up and quickly, not slowly, as you can lose a language by taking too long. I would echo, well, I could listen to Finley all day, but I would definitely echo that, that comment. Sandra says, exactly, Wayne, sense of belonging, possibility to connect to our roots. Marianne, we're not always supposed to read all the comments, but I am, and I'm having fun, so I hope that's okay. Marianne says, the series offers community as reflected in the very places that people come from and helps break isolation from Gaelic communities. Francis adds, Albert said, if you speak your language, you can't be colonized. There's much to be gained by working together, which is very true. Suzanne adds that it's never too late to take a step towards connecting and building community. Alistair says, Monantang or Sun Shah, many thanks for this. I was very struck by John William Credo. I did not know anything about the residential school. So I know for a lot of the people joining us from Scotland, you know, there's obviously things about Canadian history you may not be aware of. So I think that's been an interesting sort of thing that's developed out of last week's session as well, that there's some learning going on there. Candace adds, venues for using the language outside the classroom, Dr. Leanne Hinton. I'm always so happy to find things I can do in Gaelic, like a fitness class. There was a karate class out of Stornoway last year on Zoom, so hopefully that comes back. I would agree with that too. Why can't there be Mexican cooking classes in Gaelic or anything really. Christina says this connection with the group has helped me understand the Gaelic culture and what parts I want to bring to my life and local community. They want to bring the warmth, listening, caring, and connections, making time for neighbors and visiting as a way to let this culture go on living. So I think we have time for a couple more comments if people want to keep adding. I've missed about 17. There goes my idea of reading them all. So yes, please continue to type in the chat. We do keep these and they help, as I say, guide what we're doing. So thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your honesty and your commitment to this initiative and coming back every week and sharing so openly with us. So I'm going to hand things over to Francis right now.
Thanks, Ian. So it's my job just to wrap things up for the evening. And really I just want to say thank you and express our gratitude to you, our special visitors who have come every week, every week since January 14th, I think we started this year, and so many of you returned. And at Haley, the Gaelic Narrative Project just would not be the same without you and without you coming and sharing and participating. So we're so grateful, and we will really miss you all. In a way, we formed our own community here online, and we really hope to be able to continue to stay in touch, because community is so important, as we've heard from our guests. And as we know, so we'll continue building community and connecting through our language and culture and with our other neighbors and other cultural communities around us. So we want to say a really big thank you to all of you for joining us. And also I want to thank How We Thrive, which is the organization behind this. Susan Spikowski is a big help to us, and she has, the model for the Narrative Project came from the group How We Thrive. And so I really want to thank that organization for their support and for in Gaelic Affairs and Communities, Culture and Heritage, where I work. It's a big support to us as well. To Natasha, who's here every week to help with the tech. And we had a fabulous team to work with: Mike, Ian, Bernadette, and Margie. So we have a lot of fun putting these together, and a lot of enjoyment and pleasure in doing that. So thank you to a wonderful team. And would really appreciate it. I think we're going to have in the chat, or can put in the chat a link to our survey that we would love for you to fill out, because it's good for us to get some feedback and some direction on where we should go with it, Haley. And your feedback would be very welcome. So we'll put that in the chat, and we'll probably follow up with an email too, to encourage you to fill that out. It's very helpful to us. And I think that's all we are going to say for now, but we do have a special treat right now. We're going to get a Gaelic song to send us on our way, and we're going to welcome Nona McDonald Dyke, who you might remember from last year. And one of the beautiful special areas of the Gaeltacht here in Mi'kmaq is the North Shore, Cape Breton. Very beautiful area along the trail, and a really special place of Lewis and Harris descendants who had beautiful